Hey there, welcome back to Farmcraft. Last week we got the dam to final height, but there's a lot more to do, starting with the spillway. The purpose of a spillway is to protect the dam from having water run over the top. If the pipe ever gets overwhelmed and the water level rises, the spillway gives it a path around the dam to protect the dam. We've decided to put the spillway on the far side of the pond here. If the pipe gets overwhelmed and the water level starts rising, this will be the lowest point and the first place that water can start to flow out of the pond. It's important to build this out of undisturbed ground rather than built ground like the dam, so it's very resistant to erosion. You just cut it down to the right height with the dozer. Okay, we're at the far end of the dam. I got the laser level set up there, and water line is going to be 2 feet below the dam. And that actually comes out to that stack of stones right there. So that's water line. 6 inches above that is going to be spillway. So in other words, the water has to come up 6 inches before the spillway does anything. Which, you know, this thing's going to be at least half an acre, probably more. That's a fair amount of water that's going to have to add before the spillway comes into play. So spillway 6 inches above, which is this flag right here. And I am going to cut this way, and up here the virgin ground is well above spillway height so that I can slope it down, and I won't actually have any water against the dam on the spillway, if that makes sense. No water against the built clay. It'll all be against virgin ground. That over there is also spillway height, as is that orange flag. So I'm going to kind of come right uphill from that and then right there into the woods, and that will take it. The ground is sloping that way pretty aggressively at that point, so once I get to here, the water's just going to go that way. It will not come back along the toe of the dam and try to erode it. So that's the idea. You basically want that spillway to be nice and flat and past the dam, and then it can start sloping when it's on virgin ground and stuff that's not going to erode so easily. Now, if you're worried about the woods eroding, I wouldn't, because all of the water that's ever come through this gully for who knows how long has all come right through there and right through the woods down to the creek. And you can see there's poplar trees, and you know, it's not that much water. It's not going to hurt anything. You can see from the size of the wash that at most this is a small stream, even when it's at max flow. If it's not clear, it'll be much more obvious once I have the spillway cut out. So first, strip off the topsoil, and then I'm going to start cutting the spillway. And I have to be careful as I go to make sure that I don't cut too deep. So I get out the laser level and I check my elevations frequently. I hit rock pretty quickly. This is more of that clay shale, so it's fairly soft stone, but it is going to be very erosion resistant, which is a good thing, but kind of hard to cut through. I had to dig in the corner of the dozer blade to get through this section. This section right here was really putting up a fight. With the blade flat on it, it would just slide over the top. So I used the corners to chisel away at it. This 6-way blade sure comes in handy. I really can't imagine trying to use a dozer without one. 6-way meaning I have multiple ways that I can move the blade. Up, down, I can angle it left and right, and I can also twist it so that the corner is down like I'm doing here. Many dozers just have up and down, and that would really limit you in something like this. And here's our spillway. It's a little low here, so as the pond comes up, the water's going to slowly fill this area. And then, in spite of it looking a little rough from the dozer, where I cut is actually quite level here. We used a laser level. The owner helped me so he could shoot it and I could take a little off and shoot it. And we got it to like within an inch. It's level all through there. And then it starts to drop off over here. Now, so I'm standing on the spillway here. That is still virgin ground and it's higher. So this area here that the water is going to be running past is also virgin ground. It's not clay that I put in. So it's going to be very erosion resistant. And he's going to put a road on this thing. He wants to be able to drive across it. So we're going to put road fabric, stone. The stone's going to continue right through here and then up that hill. So I think the chances of having any erosion issues on the dam here are pretty much nil. The ground here was real hard, real rocky, and I think that's going to make an excellent spillway. Now I'm dressing up the sides of the dam. Going up and down it with the dozer helps smooth out the slope, compact it a little bit, but more importantly, the tracks leave horizontal ridges in the soil that will help hold grass seed and hay and resist erosion while the vegetation is being established. I'm also pushing topsoil, which will also help that vegetation get established.
YouTube never does hills justice. That's a pretty steep hill, and going up it actually isn't too bad. For some reason, when you're going down it and the brakes are kind of, you know, the stopping you faster and slower, you can't put it in gear because it'll zip down that hill. So you have to use the brakes and it'll like stop, and it kind of starts to feel a little tippy, but I don't think there's any chance of it ever tipping on a slope like that. I think that dozer could probably run on a 45-degree angle without tipping. So that's it for today. I got a fair amount of topsoil on it, and where I didn't have topsoil to easily put on there, you don't have to have topsoil to plant grass. You're just going to put lime, and it should grow in the clay just fine. So we're going to lime it, we're going to put straw on it, and obviously grass seed. And I think we're going to do a combination of fescue and ryegrass. The ryegrass really grows quickly and makes a good root system to help keep it from eroding while the fescue is getting established.
Man, that almost looks professional. Just goes to show you, with hard work and practice, any idiot can fool an audience on YouTube.
All right, I just used the laser level and marked out the water line. So I kind of have some idea what I want to do with this area. And I'm going to push this topsoil here up onto the dam and prep this side of the dam. It's kind of cool, starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
These piles that I'm calling topsoil is actually mixed soil that I pushed off of the site before I started building the dam. It's kind of the layer that was between the real topsoil and the clay.
Well, I guess if anything was going to clog up the fuel lines, that would do it. The filter that I put in is not clogged. I think it was actually in the tank. I just pumped the primer pump a few times and that seemed to do the trick, so keep working. All right, maybe not.
It's getting pretty late in the day, so I'm going to work on the dozer tomorrow and take care of some other things now.
So I had a discussion with the owner. We decided to go with a gate valve here. So we're going to block that pipe with this, but if we ever want to, we can tie a rope up here. Well, we'll have a rope already up here tied to the standpipe, and you can pull the rope rather hard and open the valve. And then I'm going to make a stick that will just like have a loop on it that will follow the rope down and be able to push it closed again. So he'll be able to drain from the bottom if he ever wants to. I've got the laser level over there, and the stick is set to the water line. So the bottom of it marks the water line.
It's the following morning. I'm going to go ahead and start this bonfire so that I can be here to keep an eye on it all day.
There's your water line. All right, I have a rope tied to the gate valve and comes up here and loops over the standpipe here. There's going to be a trash rack on that would make it so that you can't pull it up off of that. So you ever want to open a valve, you know, the water line's going to be right there. So you have to reach a foot down, get the rope, take a boat over above this and pull the rope. The valve will open. And then all you have to do is have a stick with a loop on it, or a pole or something, that you can follow the rope down to find the top of that handle and then push it back down if you want to close it without draining the entire pond. So that's a pretty versatile setup, actually. So I had forgotten about this tank. This is actually the tank off of my sawmill. I just took all the gasoline out, dried it out, filled it with diesel. Temporary tank. Now, it's only 3 gallons. That's not going to run this dozer that long. So I would like to put it on the roof and have it out of my way, but I'm going to have to be filling this thing quite frequently. So I think here will work. We'll see. All right, here we are. Line goes down. This pedal never reaches all the way to the back. So I'm just going to tie it back there because that's a good place for that hose to go through. And the cheapest way I could couple those lines together was actually to get one of those cheap little valves. You can see that little red valve there. Let me open that. Maybe. Here we go. And yes, I eliminated the filter. This tank has a filter right at the beginning of the line, and the tank's clean. So there's not going to be any junk going in there. And I think for the first time, I'm going to have a very good fuel supply to this thing. It'll be interesting to see if it runs any differently. But I can keep my eye on the fuel level while I'm operating. We're ready to operate. Only bleeding a little bit. That's a good repair.
Yeah, this fire isn't burning as well as I had hoped, but it is burning. There's some spots in this upper area of the pond that I need to take down a little bit with the dozer because the water's shallow and they would either be really close to the surface or actually sticking up out of the surface.
Wow. I wonder if some air was in the line or something. Let me go grab my wrenches. We're gonna bleed this thing out, make sure there didn't get some air in it somehow. I've got the bleed port wide open. The cap is off. Nothing is coming out, even when I pump the primer. So even on my temporary tank, I have a fuel delivery issue. This thing is just bound and determined to not run. So probably the screen that's in there is too fine and it can't pass enough diesel fuel. Oh, that's nice. That thing just unthreads. That's going to make it a lot easier. That is probably a 10 micron screen, and when you're talking, unless it's a fuel pump, I mean if it's gravity fed, it's just not going to be able to do diesel fuel. So that's got to come out of there. Is it going to run now? I may have to bleed it more, we'll see. He's trying. Don't make me work more, just start. So close. All right. Hope my starter is still alive when I'm done with all this. This thing is something else. Can't believe this thing. Still having trouble running. So I think the tank needs more gravity feed than it's getting. I'm gonna have to add a fuel pump or something to this thing. This is just getting ridiculous. Right now I just want to finish this job. I don't want to keep going to the parts store. Good grief. I thought I'd rig up a temporary tank. It's nice and clean. There's nothing to clog it. It's going to work great. I can finish the job. Nope. Not even that. Had a longer piece of fuel hose. I ran it. Now it's sitting on top of the previous tank, so it has just as much gravity feed. The only thing is this thing has a potential to airlock because it goes up and then down. As long as that siphon's okay and doesn't get air in it, we should be all right. And that's all hooked up, and I think it's still bled because of that valve. Let's see if it starts. see, that thing should be spitting fuel. Crazy thing. Why is that not putting fuel out? It should be. Let's see if number 4 is.
So I had the hardest time bleeding it this time than I've had since I've owned this dozer. And I think that's a clue as to what's going on here. It just took me a little while to figure it out. This is the other end of that line that is not spitting any fuel. And of course I'm not getting any fuel on this side either. In just a second here, I turn the throttle up, which increases the RPMs. And then it finally starts putting out fuel. This thing is testing my patience. The temporary tank works worse than the original did. All right, there she sits. I'm aborting the temporary tank idea. It's a good idea, but my tank just keeps airlocking the way the fuel draws off of it. I can't turn it over or flip it on its side. It'll leak like crazy. And I've called all the local auto parts stores. Nobody has anything. So I am definitely going to order something for the future because this is a frustrating position to be in. But what I'm going to do is try to make the actual fuel tank work correctly. I do have to run home to get some tools, but before I do, I think I'm going to stoke this thing up a little bit. Taking its time. I was hoping it would burn a little faster than that, but yeah, we'll get it. Now if I can just get this dozer running. I'm going to use the tank that's there. I have a bit of a plan. We'll see if it works. All right, filter's back on. That is the output from the fuel tank. It's just gravity feed to this point. But I should get good flow here, and I've checked this and I'm not. So there's something plugged in the tank. So I've got my little trusty old propane bottle, and I'm going to use that to blow it out after I open up the petcock. I also brought some pretty good magnets. I've got a couple more hard drive magnets too, and I'm going to put these on the fuel tank to try to catch as much of that stuff as I can until I can get this cleaned out. And I really should have done this a long time ago. It's such an easy thing to do. So, but first step, let's see if we can get the fuel flowing right. All right, so I'm going to go open that petcock.
What do we have? A dribble? Some flow, not enough to run it. And a smarter person would have had this already before opening the petcock. That's a pretty nice view there. You can see the dam nice and horizontal and the standpipe being cut off 2 feet lower. And if you look closely, you can probably see the gate valve with the rope attached to it. So this pond is actually ready for action if I can just get the dozer to run and dress up the edges. That said, all right, I've got the filter on. I put a little bolt there to act as a temporary stop for the fuel. We're gonna blow it out, hopefully get good flow, and then I will plug it in down here to that valve. And that should do it. We'll put some magnets on the fuel tank and see if we can't finish this job. So that's the dribble we're getting that won't run it. That's better. It's not great though. I would have thought it would flow better than that. God. Yeah, that's definitely better. All right, now can I get that back through there? Yeah, that's enough flow to run it. Get it on that guy. Yeah, bleeding again. Nothing like blood and diesel fuel. Cut that on the hose clamp. Trying to push it on. There it is. This is the underside of the tank. So here's a hard drive magnet. Here's another hard drive magnet. Over there on the far side for a speaker magnet. A strong neodymium magnet. And one more speaker magnet. So hopefully that will keep all the crud here towards the back of the machine and prevent this from happening over and over and over. I should have done that a long time ago. That's not like pure topsoil, but that's much better soil than is up there on the field. And that's actually going to help the pond quite a bit, I think. If you get good, healthy growth on the field there, thick grass, it's going to help try to catch some of the runoff and help the water clarity of the pond every time it rains. So I'll just finish spreading that out a little bit on the spillway, and then I got to come over here and do this side. Darn it. Pile's still burning. But man, we are getting there. Well, the fire was a fail. Yeah, I mean, all that stuff was alive just within the last month. It just doesn't want to burn. If I had a blower or some kind of system I could rig up, I could probably get it to burn, but I'm just going to let it sit there and we could burn it later. Let's finish up this pond. All right, so little change of plans with this area. Initially, he thought he'd have a little kind of mini pond here above the big pond, but he and his wife decided they don't really want to deal with this. They don't like the way it looks. They want me to just kind of spread everything out and make it into a smooth sort of hollow that they're going to be able to mow and just keep down with the bush hog. So yeah, you can see that it's holding water built up with rain. So the first thing I'm going to do is dig a trench, drain it out, and then I'm going to get the dozer over here and we're going to clean this place up. Here you can see the owner has started putting some road fabric down. I think he's got stone coming tomorrow, and this is going to be perfectly drivable across the top. You guys remember this overgrown graveyard that was in part 5 of this series with the Civil War soldier buried in it? Let's clean this up. Well, that looks a little better. Not perfect. You know, the owner didn't ask me to do this. I asked him if I could, because so many of you had suggested that I should clean it up, and I tend to agree. So this one right here, that is the soldier that we looked at last time, and I'm pretty sure that's the footstone for it. It looks like they all have a footstone. That's an unmarked grave and footstone. I think there's one here, or there probably was one here just by the layout, but I can't find any stones here. I see a stone there that could have been a footstone, but I can't find a headstone. So maybe there's 2 graves here, or maybe they're open. Who knows? This grave is marked. I don't know if you can read that. It says born August 21st, 1902 and died March 12th, 1920. So 18 years old. Ugh. Thankfully, tragedies like that are far less common than they used to be. But there's the footstone for that. This is a footstone right there. And then right here is a stone that I think fell over. That was probably the headstone. Here's another one. Stone, footstone, stone, footstone. And then I couldn't find any others. So there you go. We've got at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I think 6 or 7 graves in here. And I'm happy to report that after seeing it cleaned up, the owner said that he was going to maintain it from here and really get in and keep it mowed.
Time for me to get back to work. Let's build a trash rack. Remember, a trash rack protects the standpipe from sticks and other floating debris from getting down in it and clogging it. This isn't my design. To my understanding, this is a standard way to do it, but it is a pretty clever design. You'll see how it works when we're done. That's not going anywhere. I'm putting this smaller wire on just to make sure that nothing big enough to clog the pipe can get in. So assuming that is the standpipe, that, you know, the water level is going to be here and it wants to dump in there. The problem is sticks and all the floating stuff is going to be brought right to this pipe, down the pipe, and it's going to clog it. So you want to get all that trash caught, and that's what this is for. This fits down into the pipe. And now the water line is right here. So as that water comes up, it's going to find its way underneath and come up through here, and you can see the openings that it has are much smaller than the 6-inch pipe. So the water can get up through and go over the pipe and then down in, but any sticks or floating stuff just goes against this and just stays there. It can't go, it's not going to go underneath. And anything that is able to get through there isn't going to be big enough to clog the pipe. So that protects the pipe from getting clogged. This up here, if the pond ever comes up an entire foot, of course the spillway would be running. It's unlikely to happen, but if it did, then the water can go through here. So again, it's small and it's strong. You want that strong because invariably leaves and sticks and stuff will clog this, and then you've got water pressure sitting on it, and if it's not able to support the pressure, then it collapses and your pipe clogs. So yeah, trash rack. This also traps this rope on here so that it can't come up. There's enough holes in this that the bottom of this will fill up with water and it won't float. And it's pretty heavy, and it's actually wedged in there pretty good. So yep, trash rack.
So there's kind of an interesting thing here. Explains partly why clay is such a good material for building pond dams. And clay expands when it gets wet. It also contracts when it gets dry. So that's why it's all cracked up there, is because that's clay that the water has come out of. The nice thing is if you take clay that's, you know, not sopping wet and you build a dam out of it, as the water tries to penetrate into that dam, the clay is going to expand, and anywhere where there are leaks or water infiltration, the clay essentially just fights it automatically, because as it gets wet, it gets bigger, and then it's going to push back against that water and seal it up. Now, the bedrock that's at the bottom of this pond, I call it bedrock, but it's really just when it starts into shale, and it's clay shale. It's basically very weak, easily breakable rock with lots of clay in it. And I really don't think it's going to leak much, if it leaks at all, because as the water tries to penetrate into it, it's also going to have expansion and hopefully seal up. But that remains to be seen. We are going to have to let the rain come back, because of course now that the pond is done, it won't rain. It only wanted to rain while I was working on it. Murphy, I hate you. Yeah, we'll see how this thing does when we go to fill it. Well, it took several days, but I did finally get that fire to burn down. I'm going to take the dozer and we're just going to spread this whole thing out, and this will fertilize this whole area of field. So you might ask yourself, why did he spread it that way? Well, that there, the dirt pile that was over there, is mixed topsoil, so it doesn't need the fertilizer as much. It should grow field grass just fine. And this up here is all the wood ash. Well, it's downhill that way. I don't know if you can tell, it's on quite a slope. So as it rains, all the phosphates and the change in pH and everything that the ash is going to add will just run down through that soil. So bringing the ash further uphill should help the field more.
The pond is done. So I kept track, and I burned 170 gallons of diesel fuel in this job. And interestingly, it also came out to 170 hours, and that is time in the equipment. I did not include time on repairs and going to the parts store. So yeah, I got a lot invested in this. I hope these videos do well. While we're at it, why don't you hit that like button, subscribe, share, and all that. So using the laser level, I just wanted to see what the max depth would be, and it came out to 11 feet of water. In our area, for fish to survive through the winter, through the worst winters, you need at least 6 feet, so this is plenty. Then I also wanted to check what the maximum dam height is, and it came out to just under 15 feet. Many people asked about the permitting process, which was handled by the owner. I didn't get into that. But in my area, because this is an agricultural pond, it is exempt from many of the permitting procedures. The important things for it to be an agricultural pond is that the dam is less than 25 feet tall, that it's holding back less than 100 acre-feet of water, and that it's not damming up an existing waterway. This pond easily falls within the agricultural exemptions, so basically it was just a matter of filling out some paperwork. Also important are the fact that there's nothing downstream of it that would be damaged if the dam were ever to fail. And here you can see that I moved that topsoil mountain that that we had made earlier, I moved it up the hill to his garden and then spread out the remainder. There's a few logs there, they're half rotted. They'll be chopped up by the bush hog and just rot and help make soil. And that actually all came out looking a little better than I expected after I had dug that big hole. It graded in, and that will be easy to mow and maintain. This will grow some nice grass, and after he fences it off, his sheep will be able to graze it. So that's it, guys. The pond's done, and you'll never see this thing again. No, of course, we're in a drought now that the pond is done, and I will definitely show this on my channel when it's filled. In fact, in the future, I would really like to make a start-to-finish single video showing the entire process, including a mature pond at the end. So look out for that in the future, and thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.